Okay, hi. Today we have Eugene. Eugene is a senior teacher from Riverside Primary School. Today we are going to talk about gradual release of responsibility. I know you used to be a secondary school teacher and then you crossed over to a primary school. This year when I watched your lesson, I saw how you took many months to develop your primary 3 class to students who are very self-directed in their learning and they all helping one another. So I felt you had this strong belief that even students in the primary school can be self-directed. What makes you have this belief?
We got cross-level in 2018 because it was tough because secondary school students want to be self-directed. They are not happy to always receive instructions. They want to have some ownership, autonomy of what they do. They are always willing to set up equipment for me or ask the P leaders to go in down in advance to set up. And then everything will be ready because I draw up a diagram for them. I say that, hey, this is what we're going to do. And it's similar set up for a few lessons and then we swap and swap. So they have that feeling of accomplishment when they are able to set up for me. When I came to primary school, one big difference is that we cannot expect them to walk from place to place without adult supervision. So that aspect of P leaders going in advance to set up is out of the question. Some of the equipment are too heavy. Some of them we really need to supervise them carrying things up, or even if the doors are locked, you cannot give them the key. And so I had to handhold a lot. At the same time, I was observing my colleagues, I was talking to other primary school teachers, and I learned a lot from them on how we can help them grow in their self-directedness. The difficult thing for me when I cross-leveled was I gave too many instructions. I would say, then ask them to do. Wow, I realized that they cannot do. And then I learned to have this format of if they're primary 1, I give 1 instruction and then they carried it out. Primary 2, 2 instruction, 3, 4. So I asked them to actually sit and listen first, process, ask each other, test each other. I would test them a bit. Okay, are we clear on all the instructions? Let's say primary 3. The 3 instructions can repeat after me, then I'll let them go and do it. So this is one way I can help them. Another thing is that, we're talking about gradual release of responsibilities. So when I gave a lot of instructions, I assumed that they could take on the responsibility to carry them out, but they can't. So even though my format is 3 instructions or 3 sets of instructions for primary 3, at the start of the year, I actually start with just 1. Let them get used to it. Sometimes we have to rehearse a few times. For example, once the class reached the venue, P leaders are supposed to get the hula hoops and set it in place for the rest of them to put the water bottles down. So even this, we have to rehearse 1 time, 2 times. And then when they are familiar, you can actually see their eyes glow when it's time for them to take charge. The P leaders will come forward and I say, can we go now? I say yes. And then I don't need to say anything. They will do it. They will set it up, get ready for the students to come, the main body, sit down. Other routines are like the P leaders will help check equipment, whether the watches are off, wallets are out. They are so happy to do that.
So it feels like you want them to start from very simple thing like getting their friends to be ready for PE lesson. For example, look at their watch, whether their water bottle is there, whether they are seated at the correct place. So very small little thing. Every small little thing you felt like you don't want to give out that opportunity to help them to learn how to be self-directed. I like how you give instruction and then you ask them to rehearse. Actually in secondary school we also had this same problem. I give them 3 instruction and then later on ask them to do, then, hey, how come you cannot remember the instruction at all? And a lot of students, even in secondary school, they have poor working memory. So you give them the instruction they can't do. And you kind of think that they are not motivated to follow your instruction, but actually they just forgot. When you say step A, step B, step C, they only remember step C and then they forgot about step A or B. That is secondary school. So I will believe that in primary school, the executive function is not developed yet. So definitely working memory is not so well developed. So I thought if the primary 3 student can do it, then many people can do it also. So how you rehearse is a strategy called retrieval practice. So what you were doing, you just keep practicing and then after that they remember their steps and then they do. And then when they do, they realize, hey, I can do it by myself. So I think it's like breakthrough for primary 3 students to actually realize that, wow, actually I can do it by myself. Even for my daughter also, sometimes I tell her, you go and do this. then she never do. Then, hey, why you never do? Why are you not motivated? Why are you not self-directed? Why are you not independent enough? You have already explained very clearly all the steps, but they just forgot the steps. And then when they do it wrongly, and then the parents told them you are not independent enough to the child, right? If let's say you are so young and then you keep having this information that people telling you that you are not independent enough, then you start to believe that you are not independent enough. What you wanted them is, you want them to have this belief that they can. Then by the time they reach primary 5, primary 6, then secondary school, when they reach teenage years, they start to have this believe that I can be independent.
I think you mentioned two things. One is the belief. This is more straightforward. I think it starts with not getting them to believe in themselves, but they need to see that I believe in them. They need to see that I believe that they can do it, and then my routines, the empowering routines, then will help them believe in themselves. And there's a lot of rehearsal. I think that is brain-based strategy, right? Yeah. Retrieval rehearsal. The rehearsal will make them confident, because we don't really get good at doing things 1 or 2 times. We really actually have to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. So if they are to be responsible for something, it would be good if we allow them to rehearse. So when I did some feedback with my students, they mentioned 2 things. One is that they're so happy that they can do things themselves. Like at the end of the gym module, when they come to class, they would know where to put their hoops, their shoes, their bottles, set up the gym mats, 2 person to 1 mat, and then front row will take off the shoes first, back row take the mats first, things like that. And the same for when they keep up. So the mat routines are very well rehearsed. And beyond that, I have gym warm-up cards. So we will start them off, the warm-ups. The group leaders will take charge, for example. Let's do this now, let's do that now. If they are in doubt, they have this to fall back on. So my instructions to them is not just verbal, it's also visual, and that they can fall back to my authority on the paper to guide their friends as well. So the visual guide actually helps them fulfill that belief, because right now the instructions are not just in the head, it's actually on paper. So these things are supportive structures and routines that can help them a lot. I have to believe in that they can do it, and then I put in the supportive structures for them to be able to do it. And when they rehearse over and over again, they would have that self-confidence, and then they would be self-directed. In the past, when I meet colleagues from other schools, my own colleagues, and they tell me that certain things are possible in primary school, I was like, no way. I mean, I look at the way I interact with the students, I look at my students, I couldn't think out of the box. But they tell me that it's possible, but I don't believe. I sometimes have to see it to believe. But when I see, I start to think, how did they do it? I start to ask, what are the things they put in place to do it? So I think the initial part is that when I have not seen it before, I don't know what it looks like, I don't believe. But after seeing it one time, I know it is possible, and the rest of the questions is just how can I get it?
A lot of time when I see how very effective teachers able to do something, how come all the students are so self-directed, they can do everything by themselves. I often feel like, that's them. They can do it, not me. I'm not the kind of person that I can. Just now we talked about self-fulfilling prophecy. Because I think throughout my life, not many people say I'm a good leader. So I tend to think that I'm not like other people. Other people are just better leader than me.
I say you're a good leader.
When I was younger. So the thing is, I start to have this mindset that I'm not as good as other people. So when I see other people can do it, I think that's them, not me, right? So sometimes when we're able to do something and new teachers that come in and see how I did it, they will say, I'm not you. You can do it, not me. So the thing is, you spend so much time coming out with all this visual guide, and you even spend a lot of time before the PE lesson to get the students to rehearse the steps with one another. And then you also spend a lot of time explaining to the students why they need to help one another, why they need to be self-directed. And those are times where a lot of teachers that walk past will say, hey, why are you spending too much time before the lesson and not activity time? So you actually bother to put in all this effort and time to get things right, to invest, but not everybody will agree with that. They will say that I'm just wasting time now and I don't have that capabilities to achieve what other people are doing. So the question I think is, how can teachers believe in ourselves? How do you help yourself to believe that if I keep doing this over and over again, I will eventually do lesser and student will be more self-directed, and later on I will be able to achieve what I aspire my student to be?
It's a very good question. How did I convince myself? Because I really need convincing myself. So I ask, if they can, why can't I? But the key question is, how did they do it? If I can learn some things from them, some tips, some tools, and try it myself, bit by bit, find out if it works, then I'm more empowered. It's like self-determination theory, right? I have to develop my competency bit by bit. I just try one thing first. For example, I never used to like to do this. Coming to primary school, they say you must give stickers, must give visuals. Actually, I never used stickers until this year. When I was doing PAL, when I gave out stickers, the students love it so much. It's just one sticker. It's like, good job, well done. I try them out bit by bit. I see what works for me and for the class. I think in a way it's also GRR for myself. I take on a certain responsibility of releasing to them bit by bit, step by step. Then that's how I grow in my confidence and my competence. It took me quite a number of years to be able to have one whole module where at the start students come in fresh, at the end they are self-directed, they are happy, they are organized, and they are satisfied with their self-directedness. In the student survey, they say that they're very happy to do it on their own. And so many of them say that. They even say that they're happy to make decisions. They're happy to help their friends.
When I saw you doing all this visual cue, visual guide, I even saw you doing a booklet. I thought you are the kind of person that like to do this kind of thing. And then in my mind, straight away, I thought I'm not the kind of person that like to do all these things. Then now you tell me you did not like this or doing all these things last time.
Yeah.
And
I believe in just saying and they do. Yeah.
So when we see how other teachers do it, very effective teacher, we think we are not like them. But actually they also started like us, like that. Everything cannot do, then try one little thing at a time. Because they believe that at the end of the year, the student will be self-directed. So they just keep trying small little thing. And by the time they reach that few years mark, when their student really becomes self-directed and they have all these habits and routines already, to an outsider, it feels like, wow, this person have so many great ideas, but this person spent so many years building all these ideas that it feels like this person is very smart or very wise or a lot of great ideas, but actually it's still the same. You all go step by step. What really impressed me is you really believe that student can be self-directed eventually.
Because I saw it in other teachers also. Just now you were talking about working memory. I just used the whiteboard a bit. I read somewhere that, let's say our memory is finite. For a novice, or somebody who does something the first time, the working memory, this much of it is taken up by the current task. But for the expert, only this part is used up in the working memory. And this part allows for new things. For the expert, because so many things are automated already, therefore they can have so much more access and affordances to take in new things, to do more, to process new information. And how do we get from here to here? For again, we're talking about P3 child, is that we allow them to rehearse successfully. If they don't rehearse well, we have to guide them, share with them what's the success criteria to perform well, and we help them out bit by bit. And actually, when the routines are there, other friends will help out also. Maybe the PE leader is not able to do it, or somebody forgets something. Those who know the routine actually remind them, hey, you're supposed to do this, supposed to do that. And so as a class, they grow together and they're very happy.
We always talk about unconscious incompetent to conscious to unconscious competent, right? So it becomes so automatic and it becomes so procedural until you don't need that working memory to hold new things because it's there already. So and then you can get more and more things. And I think what you are trying to tell me is that everybody can. The students also can. And once they are used to one routine, this routine become automatic and then they can have more routine. It's just step by step.
Layering, right? For you, the layering of routines. So just now you mentioned about building it up, right? So the layering of routines is like steps like that. The first layer, we have to build a strong foundation. Layer 1, we just have to rehearse enough. Once they are competent in the first layer, then we introduce them to layer 2, another routine that we add on, then 3 and 4. And really, as they progress up, they will reach self-directedness. But sometimes, like after holiday, after weekend, or if a student didn't come to school for 1 or 2 days and miss out PE, they may be here and then they fall back. So we really need to give them the chance to come back up again. So there's also mini cycles within each of the layering of routines, so that again they need to rehearse it well and the friends can help them also. So let's say when I was doing gym, if I were to use my warm-up cards, we will only do maybe 1 or 2 warm-up activities for the first session, and then do it 1 time, 2 times. I call it to introduce a routine and to consolidate routine. At least 1 session to introduce, another session to consolidate. So it looks like this. So for example, session 1 would be warm up. Session 1 math routine number 1. Lesson 2, right, I would consolidate math routine number 1 again. I would rehearse them in their heads first before we come out, and then when they come out, they would know what to do. If they forget, it's okay, we can practice. At the same time, I would also introduce maybe a warm-up routine here, and then the next session, I would consolidate it here. Then maybe I have another math warm-up routine here, and the 4th session, I will again consolidate it here. So this is my layering of routines that I find very helpful. So we layer on, introduce, consolidate, make sure it's a firm foundation, and then the next level, only when it's firm, then next level. So we don't rush it. In Fisher and Frey, Gradual Release of Responsibility, they mention about the moving up and down the levels of release. To me, that was very helpful.
Okay, so it sounds to me like you need to have that rigor of assessment to always check whether the students are ready. I like how you use routine to help students to be self-directed. And I think a lot of us always feel routine and self-directedness is opposite. So if I need that routine, means I'm not self-directed. But the thing is, everything we do, right, is based on routine. We always say Japanese people, when they go and watch football, and then after the football match, they will clean out the whole place, right? And then we always say Japanese people are very clean, or the Japanese students are very hardworking. They always clean the schools by themselves. They don't need cleaners or all. But the thing is, how did they become that? I'm sure they started off with all these routines also.
It has to start somewhere.
I'm sure their teachers or their parents make them clean, or they have this routine. Somebody make them pick up rubbish whenever they see a rubbish or something like that. Or a simple thing like when they pick up rubbish, an adult will say, oh, good job, you have picked up rubbish. All this habit formation, right, makes a person self-directed. So actually self-directedness is also a habit.
I think one of the things is about affirming students, catching them doing the right things. When we introduce routines and when they are able to rehearse and replicate and perform, especially after maybe at lesson 2, after a few days, and they are able to do it, maybe not the first time, maybe the second time, we have to praise them because they actually put in a lot of effort to remember the steps, to remember what to do, how to do, when to do. And if we don't praise them for the effort, right, actually they will say, I do all these things, teacher never say, because our words mean so much to them. And so if we praise them genuinely because they put in effort, actually children need a lot of effort to do things right. One more thing about why I find routine so powerful is that when I don't have to keep giving micro instructions. What are micro instructions? Can be like, okay, you do this, you do that, and after you do this, do this. And every lesson, my instructions are different. So I have to use micro instructions to micromanage them, telling them exactly what to do. But routines are not like that. Routines are, we want them to go automated because they know what to do already, and then they can do it. There's no cognitive overload. Their working memory is not overloaded. And so when routines are in place, my working memory is not in overseeing what the students are doing, because I actually have faith that they can do it. Faith based on evidence that they've been doing it and they can do it today. And so my attention will be scanning for any telltale signs of misbehavior starting up, students not well but not telling me, or checking out for danger arising. And even this is, for example, at the start of the lesson, but in the middle of the lesson, when students know the routine of what to do, how to practice, if I teach them something new, right, I would always refresh them something they've learned before, and then we build on. So even like for gym or for P3, FMS, we're always building on. And as they are aware how the lesson is structured, they feel very safe, and I have faith in them also. When I walk around, I know that they're doing the right things, and as I walk around, I can pay individual attention to the students, either in their groups or one by one, to help them in intervention. So previously, I used to be very stressed. I don't know how I can afford intervention to the students who are not doing well, because I used to be giving micro instructions for their task, and every day is a new thing. I didn't layer, and so they are processing new things all the time. As they're practicing something new, they would go through a lot of, as NLP says, there's a lot of noise in their performance, right? They can do, they cannot do. And then to me, it's like, wow, are they doing or not doing? Are they able to do or not to do? So my own working memory is flooded, and I wasn't able to help with the intervention with the individuals. They are in a better place. I am in a better place, and I think it's a win-win for all.
You just give a very good consolidation to why students should be self-directed, because we need to understand, even teachers also, we can't handle that 40 problems. Every time they learn something new, that something new become more difficult. And then when students get older, the gaps between the very good ones and the not so good one I get further and further apart. So how is it possible that the teachers can really go and assess every single person and try to solve everybody's problem? And so what you're trying to do is trying to invest that time earlier in their life so that later on everybody that teach these students will have a better life, because these students are there, they know how to do it by themselves, they are self-directed, they help their friends. It's like we always see some students who are very self-directed, right? We don't really need to care about them. I mean, not really care about them because we trust that they can do it by themselves and they will do a very good job. So imagine that 40 students can do it by themselves and they can do a very good job. All we need to do is really to think about what's next for them, and we can plan better lessons rather than trying to go and solve every problem. And then people will say we are micromanaging them. But actually, because at the start of the year, we did not spend enough time to build that routine in them. Thank you. I hope we can talk more about GRR in detail in future podcasts. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis.